Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Tom, and sitting right across from me, looking very ready to dive deep into something meaningful, is Ria. How are you doing today, Ria?
I am doing wonderful, Tom. Truly wonderful. And I am so happy to be here. There is something about sitting down with a microphone and just talking that makes the world feel a little bit smaller and a little bit warmer.
I completely agree. It's intimate. It's just us and the listener. And today, I really want to talk to that listener directly. I want to talk to the person who might be driving their car right now, or maybe washing the dishes or walking the dog, and they have this little feeling in their chest, a feeling that says, is this it? Is this all there is?
That is a heavy question to start with, Tom, but it is the right question. Do you want more from life? I think we've all asked ourselves that at 3 a.m. when we can't sleep. But what does that actually mean to you? When you say more, are we talking about money? Are we talking about a bigger house?
No, and I think that's where people get confused. When I say more, I don't mean stuff. I don't mean buying a new phone or a fancy watch. I mean more experience, more connection, more understanding. I think a lot of our listeners are learning English because they want more access to the world. They feel like they're living in a small room, and they know there's a giant mansion out there, but they just can't find the key to open the door.
That is such a beautiful image. The small room. I remember feeling exactly like that. You know my story, Tom, but maybe our listeners do not know the details. Before I really committed to learning English, I felt like I was living in a bubble. I was happy, sure. I had friends in my hometown, I had a job, but I knew that if I traveled just 500 miles away, I would be mute. I would be silent. I would not be able to order a coffee or ask for help or make a friend. And that thought terrified me. It made me feel trapped.
It's a form of freedom, isn't it? Language is freedom. I remember when I first started learning, I looked at it like a subject, like mathematics or history. I thought, okay, I need to memorize these lists of words, and I need to learn the grammar rules for the past perfect tense, and it was so boring. It was dry. It felt like work. But then something shifted. Do you remember when the shift happened for you? When it stopped being a subject and started being a life tool?
Oh, absolutely. I remember the exact moment. I was traveling, actually. I had saved up some money and I went to a hostel in Europe. I was terrified. I was sitting in the common room, pretending to read a book, but really I was just listening to everyone else talk. There was this group of people. One was from Brazil, one was from Germany, and one was from Japan. And they were all laughing. They were sharing stories about their travels, about the terrible food they had on the train, about missing their families. And the only way they could connect, the only bridge they had between their completely different cultures, was English.
And you wanted to be on that bridge.
I wanted to be on that bridge so badly. I realized in that moment that English wasn't about getting a score on a test. It wasn't about having a certificate to show my boss. It was about being part of that circle. It was about human connection. So I closed my book. My hands were shaking, Tom, honestly shaking. And I walked over and I just said, "Do you mind if I sit here?"
Wow, that takes courage. I think people underestimate how much bravery it takes to just speak up when you're not confident. So what happened? Did they laugh at your accent? Did they correct your grammar?
No. And that's the biggest secret. That's the thing I wish I could scream from the rooftops to every single person listening to us right now. Nobody cared about my grammar. Nobody cared that I hesitated or that I had to search for a word. They just pulled up a chair and said, "Sure, where are you from?" And we talked for 3 hours. I made mistakes. I am sure I said things that sounded funny, but we laughed. We connected. And that night, I went to bed and I felt like my world had just doubled in size. I wanted more from life, and English gave it to me that night.
That's incredible. It really highlights the difference between accuracy and fluency, or rather between accuracy and connection. I think so many learners get paralyzed by perfectionism. They think, if I cannot say it perfectly, I should not say it at all. They're robbing themselves of the experience. They're denying themselves that more that we're talking about.
Exactly. Perfection is the enemy of connection. Think about it in your native language, Tom. When you are talking to your best friend, do you speak in perfect, grammatically complex sentences? No. You interrupt each other, you use slang, you embrace the messiness of conversation. But for some reason, when we learn English, we put this pressure on ourselves to sound like a news anchor or a textbook. It is not natural. It is not human.
It isn't, and it is exhausting. I talk to students who tell me they feel physically tired after speaking English for 10 minutes, and I tell them it is because you are processing too much. You are trying to translate everything in your head, then check the grammar, then worry about your pronunciation, and then finally speak. By the time the words come out, the moment has passed. To get more from life through English, you have to let go of the control a little bit. You have to be willing to sound a little bit silly.
Being silly is a superpower. I truly believe that. If you can laugh at yourself when you mix up a word, you are invincible. I remember once I tried to tell someone that I was embarrassed, but I used the wrong word and said something that sounded like I was pregnant. It was a classic mistake. And yes, my face went red. Yes, it was awkward for 2 seconds. But then we both started laughing so hard we were crying. And that mistake actually made us closer friends. If I had been too scared to speak, I would have missed that moment of joy.
That is a great story, and it brings up an important point about identity. A lot of people feel like they are a different person when they speak English. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like Ria in English is different from Ria in your native language?
That is such a fascinating question. Yes, I do. In my native language, I am very fast. I am very witty. I use a lot of cultural references. In English, especially in the beginning, I had to be more direct. I had to be simpler. And at first, I hated it. I felt like I was losing my personality. I felt like a child. But then I started to appreciate the simplicity. I realized that because I had fewer words, I had to choose them more carefully. I became more honest. I became more direct. I think English Ria is a bit bolder. She's a bit more open. What about you?
I think Tom in English is a bit more thoughtful. In my native language, I can just ramble on and on. In English, I have to listen more. And I think that has actually made me a better person overall. It has taught me patience. It has taught me empathy. When you struggle to express yourself, you develop a deep empathy for anyone else who is struggling. You stop judging people. You stop thinking someone is not smart just because they speak slowly. You realize that behind that slow speech is a complex, interesting human being who is just translating their soul into a new code.
Translating their soul into a new code. I love that. That's poetry, Tom. And that is what we are doing. We are translating who we are so that more people can understand us. And when you think about it that way, it becomes a noble pursuit. It's not just about getting a job or passing an IELTS exam. It's about expanding the reach of your soul. It's about saying, I want to be known by more than just the people in my village. I want to be known by the world.
And I think that desire, that hunger for the world is what keeps you going when it gets hard. Because let's be honest, Ria, learning a language is hard. There are days when you feel like you are not making any progress. There are days when you feel like you have hit a plateau and you will never get better. What do you say to the listener who is in that spot right now? The person who is thinking, I have been trying for years and I am still stuck. I don't think I can get more from life. I think this is my limit.
I would say to that person, I see you. I feel you. And I promise you, you are not stuck. You are just resting. Plateaus are part of the journey. Think of it like climbing a mountain. You climb and your legs burn and you're out of breath. And then you reach a flat spot, a plateau. It feels like you aren't going up anymore, but you need that flat spot to catch your breath. You need it to let your muscles recover. You're still on the mountain. You haven't fallen off. You're just preparing for the next climb.
That is a great perspective. Resting, not quitting.
Exactly. And I would also say, look at how far you have come. We are so bad at celebrating our own wins. We always look at the gap between where we are and where we want to be. We stare at the top of the mountain and feel small, but we rarely look down and see how high we have already climbed. If you can understand this conversation we are having right now, do you realize how amazing that is? You are listening to two people speak a foreign language and you are processing it, understanding the nuance, feeling the emotion. That is a miracle. 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, or maybe even 1 year ago, this might have sounded like noise to you. Now, it sounds like meaning. You have already won. You just want to win more.
That is so true. We take our progress for granted. I think another way to break through that feeling of being stuck is to change your input. If you're bored with your textbook, burn it. Okay, don't burn it, that's a fire hazard. But put it away. Watch a movie you actually love. Listen to a podcast about a topic you're passionate about, not just learning English, but maybe gardening or astrophysics or football or cooking. Use English to learn something else. That is when the magic happens, when you stop studying the language and start using the language to study the world.
Yes, that is the key. Wanting more from life means consuming the world's information. Think about the internet. Most of the internet is in English. If you only search in your native language, you're seeing a tiny slice of the pie. When you search in English, you get the whole pie. You get tutorials, articles, research, opinions from every corner of the globe. You become a global citizen. I remember when I wanted to learn how to bake sourdough bread. I looked in my native language and found 3 recipes. I looked in English and found thousands, videos, blogs, scientific breakdowns of yeast. I felt so powerful. I thought, I can learn anything. English is the key to the library of the world.
And it's the key to entertainment, too. I know this sounds trivial, but there's something so satisfying about understanding a joke in a movie without reading the subtitles. Subtitles are great, they're helpful, but they're a filter. You're reading someone else's interpretation of what was said. When you take the subtitles off, you're hearing the actor's raw emotion. You're hearing the timing. You're getting the direct feed. It connects you to the art in a deeper way.
Oh, totally. And music? How many of us have sung along to songs for years without knowing what the lyrics meant? And then one day your English gets good enough and you actually listen to the words and you realize, wow, this song is sad. Or this song is actually really funny. It adds a whole new layer of color to your life. That is what we mean by more. It's like watching black and white TV and suddenly switching to color high definition. The world is the same, but your perception of it is richer.
Richer. That's the word. A richer life. I want to pivot a little bit and talk about the fear of judgment again, because I think that's the biggest wall standing between our listeners and that richer life. We talked about strangers, but what about people you know? Sometimes it's harder to speak English in front of friends or colleagues from your own country than it is to speak to a native speaker.
Oh, 100%. That's the crab bucket mentality. You know that theory? If you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket and one tries to climb out, the other crabs will pull it back down. Sometimes when we try to improve ourselves, when we try to learn English and get a better job or travel, the people around us get insecure. They might make fun of your accent or say, "Oh, who do you think you are speaking English now?" And that hurts. That really hurts.
It does. It feels like betrayal. So how do you handle that? How do you keep climbing out of the bucket?
You have to realize that their reaction is not about you. It's about them. It's about their fear that they're being left behind. You have to be compassionate, but you also have to be firm. You have to find a new tribe. You need to find a community of people who are also climbing. That's why podcasts like this are important. That's why online communities are important. You need to surround yourself with people who say, go for it, not people who say, sit down. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If those 5 people are negative about your growth, you need to find 5 new voices to listen to.
That is powerful advice. Curate your environment. If you want more from life, you have to surround yourself with people who also want more. Energy is contagious. If you hang around people who are curious, who are learning, who are making mistakes and laughing about them, you'll do the same. If you hang around people who are cynical and stagnant, you'll stop moving.
And you know, Tom, sometimes the person holding you back is you. We have these internal scripts. I am not a language person. I am too old to learn. I don't have the time. These are lies we tell ourselves to stay safe, because staying in the small room is safe. Going out into the mansion is scary. But nothing grows in the comfort zone.
I am too old to learn. I hear that one so much, and it breaks my heart. I had a student who was 65. He started learning English because his daughter married an American man, and he wanted to talk to his grandson. He struggled, he really did, but he had a reason, he had a why. And seeing him hold his grandson and sing a nursery rhyme in English, that was one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, it slows down, but it doesn't stop. You can learn until the day you die. In fact, learning a language keeps your brain young. It is the best exercise you can do.
That is so touching. It really comes back to the why, doesn't it? If your why is strong enough, the how becomes easier. If you are learning English just because you think you should, you will quit when it gets hard. But if you are learning because you want to talk to your grandson, or because you want to read a specific book, or because you want to travel to New York and see the Statue of Liberty with your own eyes, then you will push through the frustration. You have to emotionalize your goal.
Emotionalize your goal. I like that. Don't just make it a logical goal, make it a feeling. Close your eyes and visualize it. Visualize yourself sitting in a cafe in London. Smell the coffee, hear the rain outside, feel the warmth of the cup in your hand. Imagine the waiter coming over and you having a smooth, easy conversation with him. How does that make you feel? Confident? Proud? Free? Hold on to that feeling. That feeling is your fuel.
Visualization is so powerful. Athletes do it, musicians do it. Why shouldn't language learners do it? I used to visualize myself giving a presentation in English. I would imagine the audience nodding, understanding me. I would imagine feeling calm, and eventually I did it. And because I had played the movie in my head 100 times, the reality felt familiar. It wasn't so scary.
So let's get practical for a moment. We've talked about the mindset, the emotions, the philosophy, but our listener is asking, okay, Tom and Ria, I want more. I am ready. What do I do today? What is one small step I can take right now?
One small step. Okay, I would say change your digital environment right now. Go to your phone settings and change the language to English. Go to your YouTube account and subscribe to 3 channels that are in English but have nothing to do with teaching English. Just 3 topics you like. Immerse yourself. Create a bubble of English around you so you don't have to go looking for it. It comes to you.
That is a great practical tip. My tip would be talk to yourself. I know people might think you're crazy, but who cares? When you're alone in the shower or driving or cooking, narrate your life. Say, I am chopping the onions. The onions are making me cry. I need to find a sharp knife. Just get used to the physical sensation of English words coming out of your mouth. The more you do it, the less weird it feels. You need to bridge the gap between your brain and your tongue. The only way to do that is to move the muscles.
I love narrating my life. I still do it. Where are my keys? I know I put them on the table. It keeps the engine running. And another thing, record yourself. This is scary, I know. Nobody likes the sound of their own voice. But record yourself speaking for 1 minute about your day. Then listen to it. Don't judge it harshly, just listen. You will hear things you don't hear when you're speaking. You'll notice, oh, I keep forgetting the S at the end of the verb. And the next time you speak, you'll remember. It's a feedback loop.
Self-correction is so much more powerful than teacher correction. When you spot your own mistake, you remember it forever. When a teacher corrects you, you remember it for 5 minutes.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to mimic. Be a cat. If you hear an actor say a phrase in a way you like, copy the intonation, copy the rhythm. English is music. You have to learn the melody, not just the lyrics. A lot of people speak English with the melody of their native language, and that can make it hard to understand even if the grammar is perfect. Try to hum the English.
Hum the English. That is interesting. You mean the up and down movement of the pitch?
Yes, English has a specific stress pattern. Da-da-da, da-da-da. It's rhythmic. Some languages are very flat. Some are very staccato. English is rolling. If you can get into the rhythm, the words flow easier. It's like dancing. You can't dance the tango to hip-hop music. You have to find the groove of the language.
I think that helps with the emotional connection too. When you use the right intonation, you convey feeling. If you say, I am so happy, in a flat, robotic voice, nobody believes you. If you say, I am so happy, with the stress and the pitch change, people feel your energy, and that is what we want. We want to be felt, not just heard.
To be felt. That is the ultimate goal of communication, to transfer a feeling from my heart to yours. And English is just the wire that carries the signal. It shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be the connection.
We are coming towards the end of our time, but I don't want to stop this flow yet. I want to address the concept of consistency versus intensity. I see many people who get motivated, maybe they listen to a podcast like this, and they study for 5 hours on Saturday, and then they do nothing for 2 weeks, and they wonder why they aren't improving.
The tortoise and the hare. It is the oldest story in the book for a reason. Intensity hurts. It burns you out. Consistency heals. It builds. 5 hours once a month is useless. 15 minutes every single day is life-changing. It is about habit. It is about brushing your teeth. You don't brush your teeth for 3 hours on Sunday and then skip the rest of the week. You do it twice a day, every day. English should be like dental hygiene, just a part of your routine.
Dental hygiene, I like that. Although I hope learning English is more fun than brushing your teeth, but the point is valid. It needs to be non-negotiable. It needs to be something you just do without thinking about it. And when you miss a day, because you will, life happens, don't beat yourself up. Don't quit. Just start again the next day. The problem isn't falling off the wagon. The problem is staying on the ground.
Yes, forgiveness is a huge part of learning. Forgive yourself for being busy. Forgive yourself for being tired. Forgive yourself for forgetting a word you learned yesterday. Be kind to yourself. You are doing something incredibly difficult. You are rewiring your brain. That takes energy. Treat yourself like you would treat a child learning to walk. You wouldn't yell at a baby for falling down. You would clap and say, "Get up, you can do it." Be your own cheerleader.
Be your own cheerleader. That is essential. Because honestly, the world can be tough. There will be critics, there will be obstacles. If you're also your own critic, you're outnumbered. If you're your own cheerleader, you always have a partner.
And remember, this journey of wanting more never really ends. And that is the good news. There is always more English to learn. There are always more idioms, more slang, more dialects. There are always more people to meet. You will never reach a finish line where a voice from the sky says, "Congratulations, you have completed English." It is a lifelong relationship. It evolves as you evolve.
I love looking at it as a relationship. Sometimes it's passionate, sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's frustrating, but it's always there, supporting you.
Tom, before we go, can I share one last short story?
Please, I would love that.
A few years ago, I was in a very bad place emotionally. I felt stuck in my career, stuck in my life. I felt gray. and I decided to watch a TED Talk in English. It was about vulnerability. I didn't understand all the words. I had to rewind it maybe 10 times. But the message came through. It hit me like a lightning bolt. It changed my perspective on my entire life. And I sat there crying, thinking, if I hadn't learned English, I never would have heard this message. I never would have healed this part of myself. English didn't just help me get a job, it helped me find myself. That is what I mean by wanting more. It is about finding the keys to unlock the parts of yourself that are hidden.
That is profoundly beautiful, Ria. Thank you for sharing that. It gives me chills. It really proves that language is a vehicle for the soul.
Thank you, Tom. It has been such a joy to talk about this with you.
The joy is all mine. And to our listeners, we hope this conversation has sparked a fire in you. We hope you realize that the more you are looking for is waiting for you. It's just on the other side of a little bit of fear and a little bit of practice. You are capable of so much more than you think.
Don't settle for the small room. Open the door. Step into the mansion. Speak up. Make mistakes. Be messy. Be human. But most importantly, keep going.
Keep going. Keep listening. Keep speaking. We believe in you. This has been Real English Voices.
See you next time.
Goodbye, everyone. Actually, Ria, you know what? We still have a bit of time, and I feel like we just scratched the surface on something you mentioned earlier. You talked about the crab bucket mentality, but I want to flip it. What about the angel mentality? Have you ever had a stranger who went out of their way to help you when you were struggling with English? A moment of unexpected kindness?
Oh, that is such a lovely question. Yes, absolutely. It balances out the negative experiences. I remember my first time in London. I was trying to buy a train ticket. The machine was confusing, and there was a long line of people behind me, and I could feel the sweat running down my back. I was panicking. I was about to just give up and walk away. And this older lady behind me, she didn't sigh, she didn't check her watch, she just tapped me on the shoulder. I flinched, thinking she was going to yell at me.
We always expect the worst, don't we?
We do! But she smiled this incredibly warm smile, and she said, "It's tricky, isn't it? Even I get confused by these machines." She spoke slowly and clearly. She didn't dumb it down, she just made it accessible. And she walked me through the steps. "Press this one, darling. Now put your card here." And when the ticket popped out, she cheered, "Well done!" It was such a small thing for her, maybe 2 minutes of her life. But for me, I walked away feeling like I could conquer the world. She validated me. She made me feel like I belonged there.
Even I get confused by these machines. That was a masterclass in empathy. She lowered herself to lift you up. She took away the shame. I think that is a lesson for all of us. When we see someone struggling with our language, or anything really, we have the power to be that angel. We can be the reason someone doesn't give up.
Yes, and we can be that angel for ourselves, too. Imagine if you talked to yourself the way that lady talked to me. Instead of saying, "You are so stupid, why can't you understand this grammar?" you could say, "It's tricky, isn't it? Even native speakers get confused by this. Take your time. Well done for trying." The internal dialogue changes everything.
That is a massive shift, changing the internal bully into an internal mentor. I struggle with that sometimes. I think we all do. I have days where I look at a text in a language I'm learning. I'm trying to learn Spanish right now, and I just feel like my brain is full of fog, and the bully starts whispering, "You'll never get this. It's too hard."
So what do you do when the fog comes in? How does Tom fight the fog?
I stop trying to fight it. I acknowledge it. I say, okay, today is a fog day, and I lower my expectations. On a clear day, maybe I read 5 pages. On a fog day, I read 1 paragraph, or I just listen to a song. I keep the connection, but I reduce the intensity. I think wanting more doesn't mean wanting maximum intensity all the time. It means wanting longevity. I want to be doing this in 10 years, so I have to survive today.
Survival mode is valid. Sometimes just not quitting is the victory. You know, I think about the concept of more in terms of career, too. We have listeners who are brilliant engineers, doctors, artists, but they feel limited because they can't express their brilliance in English. They feel like their intelligence drops 20 points when they switch languages.
The intelligence trap. It is so frustrating. You have this complex, nuanced thought in your head, and what comes out of your mouth is, I think this is good. It feels like trying to play a symphony on a toy piano.
A symphony on a toy piano. Tom, your metaphors are on fire today. That is exactly it. So, how do we upgrade the piano? Or how do we learn to make beautiful music on the toy piano while we wait for the upgrade?
I think we have to accept that simple can be powerful. Ernest Hemingway wrote in very simple sentences. He didn't use big, fancy words, but he conveyed deep emotion. You don't need to use the word exacerbate when make it worse works perfectly fine. In fact, make it worse is often clearer. We need to stop trying to impress people with our vocabulary and start trying to impact them with our clarity.
Clarity is king. I used to memorize SAT words or GRE words, those long academic words, and I would try to force them into conversation. I would say things like, "The weather is quite serendipitous today," and people would look at me like I was an alien. It created distance. Now I just say, "I love this weather. It's real. It connects."
And it's confident. It takes confidence to be simple. Insecurity hides behind complexity. Confidence stands in simplicity. If you want more from your interactions, be real, be you. Don't try to be a dictionary.
Speaking of being real, let's talk about accents again. We touched on it, but I feel like it's a huge block. I have students who say, "I want to get rid of my accent." And I always ask them, why?
That is a controversial topic. Some people think a native accent is the gold standard. But what is a native accent? Is it British, American, Australian, Scottish? Even within America, a New Yorker sounds nothing like a Texan.
Exactly. There is no single correct accent, and your accent is your history. It is your map. It tells people where you have been. It adds flavor. As long as you are intelligible, as long as people can understand the words, the accent is just decoration. It is charming. I love hearing a French accent in English, or a Hindi accent, or a Japanese accent. It sounds like music to me. It sounds like effort. It sounds like someone who has traveled.
It sounds like bravery. When I hear an accent, I hear someone who is brave enough to step out of their comfort zone. I think we need to reframe accent reduction to pronunciation clarity. They're different things. Pronunciation is about making the right sounds so you are understood. Accent is the melody you wrap those sounds in. Keep the melody, just sharpen the sounds.
Keep the melody, sharpen the sounds. I am going to write that down. That is brilliant. It takes the pressure off. You don't have to erase your identity to speak English. You just have to tune your instrument.
And the world is changing. Most conversations in English nowadays are between two non-native speakers. It's a German talking to a Chinese person in English, or a Brazilian talking to a Russian. The native speaker is often the minority in the room, so the standard is shifting. It's not about sounding like the Queen of England. It's about global English. It's about being an international communicator.
That is so liberating. It means we are all in this together. We are all building this global language together. We are shaping it. English is not a statue in a museum that we have to admire from afar. It is a ball of clay that we all get to play with and mold.
We are molding it right now. This conversation right here is shaping the way our listeners think about the language. That's a cool responsibility.
It is. And Tom, I want to ask you something personal. What do you want more of? We ask the listeners, but I'm asking you. In your life, right now, what is the more you are chasing?
That's a good question. You turned the tables on me. I think I want more stillness. That sounds contradictory to wanting more, doesn't it? But in this world of constant noise, constant notifications, constant rushing, I think true luxury is the ability to be still, to just sit and be. And ironically, learning languages helps me with that. Because when I'm really focusing on listening to Spanish or reading, I have to be still. I have to focus. It blocks out the noise of the rest of the world. It's a form of meditation for me. What about you?
More stillness. I like that. For me, I think I want more awe. 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 You know that feeling when you look at a sunset, or you see a mountain, or you hear a piece of music that makes you cry and you feel tiny? I want more of that. We get so caught up in the routine. Wake up, work, eat, sleep. We forget that we are living on a floating rock in infinite space. I want to remember the magic, and connecting with people from different cultures helps me do that. Hearing a story from someone who grew up in a village in the Himalayas or a city in the desert, it brings back the awe. It reminds me how vast and beautiful the human experience is.
That is profound. Stillness and awe. I think those two go together, actually. You need stillness to feel the awe. If you're rushing, you miss the sunset. If you're scrolling on your phone, you miss the mountain.
So, to our listeners, use English to find your stillness and your awe. Use it to read poetry that stops you in your tracks. Use it to watch documentaries about the deep ocean. Use it to listen to people who have lived lives completely different from yours. Don't just use it to order a sandwich. Use it to order a bigger life.
Use it to order a bigger life. There it is. That's the tagline. I think we've found the heart of this episode. It's not about the mechanics of the language. It's about the mechanics of the soul.
It always is, isn't it? We start talking about verbs and nouns, and we end up talking about souls and dreams. That is the power of conversation. And that is why I love doing this podcast with you, Tom.
Likewise, Ria, it's a privilege. And to everyone listening, thank you for letting us into your ears and into your minds today. We know you have a choice of a million things to listen to, and you chose us. We don't take that lightly.
We really don't. We appreciate every single second you spend with us. And remember, if you felt a little spark today, if you felt a little nod in your heart that said, yes, that's me, then act on it. Don't let the spark die. Fan the flame. Speak a sentence today. Learn a word today. Connect with a human today.
The world is waiting for your voice. Not your perfect voice, your real voice.
Your real voice.
Take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and never stop wanting more. From all of us here at Real English Voices, keep talking. Goodbye.